All right. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're here at the Center for Pursuit in the East End, an absolutely fantastic development, something we don't always see, especially in the nonprofit space. There's such an exceptional, beautiful development that we need to see more of. I want to thank our sponsors. Obviously, I start out with Able Design Group, Blue Kite Building Group, St. Law Engineering that's providing the drinks. We appreciate it, and Lazur Group. We have an exciting panel here today. We have the CEO, Charles Canton of the Center for Pursuit. We have the founder and managing partner, Eric Mayfield of EastEnd Partners, to help kind of pull all this together. Kristopher Stuart, principal in charge at Gensler, and Tiger Lyon, who is the project architect for Gensler. Thank you all for being here, okay? And thank you guys all for coming. So let's start out with you, Charles. Thank you for hosting us at this fantastic development meant to assist people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in their pursuit of independence. This is awesome, fantastic. You've done a lot of great work here in Houston for years in the nonprofit space. So I know you joined Center for Pursuit recently, but you've been doing a lot of great things in Houston for a while. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your history and why you decided to move over to the Center for Pursuit?
Sure. I've actually been at some kind of work for a long time. I'm an old guy. And so I spent a lot of time in the for-profit space with technology companies, IBM and others, and then decided I wanted to get back into my roots. I had worked in college in the nonprofits. So I worked for Goodwill here in Houston for about 15 years. And got the chance to open up a lot of stores and donation centers all over the area, and had the opportunity to come to the Center for Pursuit about 4.5 years ago. So I'm into my 5th year just now, and it was with an opportunity to grow a new facility that you're sitting in. So it's been a great opportunity.
Yeah, this is a fantastic spot. We love it. So the previous location for the Center for Pursuit, did you have a chance to work at that previous location?
Yes.
So that was over at Shepherd and Allen Parkway. And Hanover has been doing a lot of great things over in that space. You guys sold that to Hanover. They've created Autry Park, which is an exceptional mixed-use development right there in Allen Parkway. Allen Parkway in general is just blowing up. But I think that was a great move because I'm sure probably a decent sale, and you were able to take that and purchase this 5-acre plot of land from Lovett Commercial over here. And when you did that, you said this new site was an opportunity to provide a stellar quality of services. So I wanted you to see if you could expand a little bit on what it means to have the Center for Pursuit in the East End, along the Green Line, next to Baker Ripley, and all the other great things that your clients will be able to benefit from being in this space.
Sure. We were at the other location we've been in existence for over 71 years, so we were at that location for a long time, and it gave us the opportunity to leverage that space. Hanover was wonderful to work with, and to leverage that. And that was a set of buildings that was created by and loved by and used by people for a lot of years, and a lot of people are responsible for the fact that we're sitting in this building now, because over the years they were so generous to allow us to have that property, and then we were able to sell it and leverage it to purchase the property here. And the decision to come here was made to come to the East End specifically because of the families that have the needs here. We saw there were a lot of needs. We worked, we had a lot of charrettes. We had 4 separate charrettes with donors and clients and families and community members and so forth. So we tried to determine what the needs were. And being here near the light rail was an absolute necessity for us, because it allowed our clients to be able to get easy transportation, whether it be for downtown or to the medical center or anywhere else they need to go. So independence is a real important thing for them, and so it made it really a logical choice for us to be able to be close to downtown. We're about as far from Houston on this side as we were on the west side before, and so it was And now you're right, they didn't have the rail opportunity and so forth. So it also gave us the opportunity to build a new style of building, an open building like this. We had a beautiful property there, a lot of big, beautiful oaks, but this allowed us to have a porous property, a property where we could invite the community in and have retail on the property to allow us to have an interaction between our clients and the community, because I think developing an understanding between people who are neurotypical and neurodiverse is really important. That means people who don't have autism or don't have Down syndrome or don't have cerebral palsy can get along with people who do just fine if they get to know one another. So one of the objectives here is to have us and the community interact, and it's given us that opportunity.
Fantastic. You can definitely see that with the design. It kind of just spills out onto Harrisburg. Definitely I like the retail facing Harrisburg, so it's kind of let the community come in as well as let people, your clients here, interact with the community. No, that's great. So sell that land, you have a vision for this, you need some help developing it, and I think that's where Eric comes in, Eric Mayfield of EastEnd Partners. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you and Charles had discussed for the goals of this development here and how it kind of came about?
Sure. So I've spent, prior to forming my firm almost 4 years ago now, I'd spent 15 years working with a regional private developer. 10 plus of those were on mixed use projects in the region, and really fell in love with that process. And sometimes it's frustrating though, because it's at one point you're like, can I just get good at office? No, you got to go retail, you got to go multifamily as soon as you think you have some competency. But the reality was all that experience really has culminated in a lot of different things here, and there's still new things we're learning all the time, and some new components, particularly about their specific use. But I was working on a project in College Station, and a friend of mine called me about this opportunity, I was looking to do something different anyway. B, it's a standalone fantastic opportunity. I'm honored to be working on it. But also my daughter has autism and selective mutism. She was actually diagnosed during that first year or so while we were here. But I kind of secretly at that time I was thinking, you know, we may learn something here that can help her. And you know, the reality is we may be building a home for her here too. So.
Wow.
So it's been great, and Charles has tolerated me this long, so that's been good. You know, relative to the goals, it's you know, Charles and I are both going to lead up to Chris's part here in a second. And Gensler played a huge role in crafting an initial set of goals and really aspirations that got distilled down into goals with the SORET process, because the board had the vision of, you know, we've been at last campus for 50 years. Let's look at this not as a short term like a lot of the nonprofits do. Let's challenge ourselves to look at this campus as a 50-year opportunity. Well, if you're going to do that, what's your overall arching mission? You know, and you know, I think somebody had said at the time, we want to be the MD Anderson of the IDD, you know, space, which is pretty crystallizing. But then how do you execute that? So there's a lot of ideas about, you know, inclusion and bringing the community in for inclusion, as Charles alluded to. And then also we've got to find out an amount of money, even with the Hanover sale and even with the Pursuit 2016 and the ongoing Strive campaign that the center's doing, and it's all been extraordinarily successful. You've got almost an infinite mission here, and so bringing all these other groups in to help collaborate and bring their resources and best practice was one of the goals as well, and then ultimately get open all the things that we need to do that and make it a beautiful but a sustainable sense of place. And that's one of the things that we learned from the mixed use projects is there's so many people that want to be in a project like this, whether it's, you know, I'm working, well, almost regardless of your facet, whether you're working in office or retail, but you're creating a fantastic environment for their clients, but also their employees to help them recruit and sustain great quality people. And it's still early, but I think everybody's happy with with being here. And
It's like it's a huge undertaking with so many different people to make it happen.
Oh, it's a huge project team, and that's what helps it be successful.
And one more thing, just really quick, Charles. We have here an administration building, a programs building, and a health and wellness building at this time. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that does for the mission at Center for Pursuit and your clients?
Right. The building we're in is actually the welcome building and the administration building where all of the directors and the executives are housed, and human resources and all the things in accounting that it takes to run this. So we had to have a place for them. And I will say to Eric's comment that having as beautiful a building as this is, it's been a lot easier to attract and retain talent during this very difficult time. Because people like to work in this kind of an environment. The wellness building, which is behind us, and it is partially open, partially some are in there, some are not. It's right, yes, right behind there. It has Baylor College of Medicine and Texas Children's Hospital has a transition medicine clinic in there that works directly with our adult patients. They have their other location in the medical center, but it is a unique group of doctors and clinicians that work with our population to help them as they migrate out of their pediatricians and young doctors into the doctors they need for their adulthood. So they're there. We have our dentists. We have a dentist there for our population, and we have behavioral specialists and people who do the counseling and so forth. So we're actually building a wellness component there. Bloom Fitness, who is one of our partners, they do exercise programs for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And if I could say one thing about them, they're an example of something that we're doing. When you build something like this, it's beautiful, but it's expensive. You don't want to have to keep trying to build things. Yeah. So Bloom Fitness is an example of where they have a space that is a finite space, and they exercise with a dozen or so of our clients at a time, but they're actually beginning to video those and let them go live out onto the internet so that you can sort of in a Peloton model, if you have intellectual and developmental disability friends, they can actually get on and do exercises. They ride bikes, do floor exercises and so forth. So it's a way to leverage one space for multiple people. So where we used to reach a dozen people at a time, we'll reach thousands now. So we're trying to do that more often. So that building is behind us. It also has retail space inside. And some of the folks who know the Center for Pursuit know that there's a group called the Caners, and they do caning on furniture, and they do repairs on that, and they're one of the only organizations in town where only people that do that, and they're in that building as well. So the third building is the programs building, and that's where a lot of our training and education will happen for our folks, our adults particularly, who are looking for jobs, and to try to help them socialize into that. And so there'll be a lot of training going on in that building. In addition, we will have a tech lab, which will allow us to work with the high schools in the community. This will be one. It'll be our third one that we have, but it'll be one here, and it'll allow us to take folks in middle school, high school, the older folks, and help find out what it is they need to learn, what it is they need to focus on to try to get their skills together, to try to get out into the competitive world as they move on. So the community was really excited about that, and we got support from the city council for that. We've also done that in the southwest part of town and in Spring Branch as well. So ultimately we'd like to have about 10 of those around. Wow. To work with the school districts to try to help support the population. So that's
what a fantastic organization. No, this is great. And this is a huge undertaking, as Eric had mentioned, and I'd like to kind of focus on Gensler now. So we have the goal, the mission. We got to make it come together and design and make it functional, but also a great design. And the thing that jumps out on me is this plaza and the blending of the public and private realm. I feel like I can be walking by, and as soon as the retail opens up here, I'm just as welcomed as all the clients in this campus. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, and what did it take to kind of put that all together? This nonprofit, along with the Houston Endowment, its new building, are two that really stand out as just exceptional nonprofit buildings. So tell us how this kind of came together, and how your role worked with Eric and Charles.
I guess I'll start with the genesis of the project. And for us, we're very fortunate to have been engaged with the center going back 10, 15 years. We have friends that are on the board, and we love what they do. If somebody would call and say, hey, we need to look at refreshing a space, because as well as that facility served their clients for many, many years, it was aging. And we helped refresh some spaces, always sort of, as volunteer on a volunteer basis, and just loved helping. And we, there are three characteristics of the campus that we became well aware of. One is its isolation compared to this. It was set back from Dallas, and even though you could see it on Allen Parkway, not a lot of people knew what it was or what it did.
Absolutely, yeah. It was right there, but also you didn't really know about it.
And the second, it was an interesting piece of architecture, but in terms of a place, it was a collection of buildings, but it didn't have the heart like this does. And so you arriving at a place on the campus where you can say this is it, where you see all the activities and everything that's going on. It was a bit of a maze. But the third most
old brutal architecture from the '60s too, which kind of make that sense of place not quite.
Absolutely,
as warm.
It was not approachable. But what was approachable, and this is also something that we learned, and everybody who comes here when the campus was fully occupied, is the clients were incredibly warm and inviting. And if you walked on campus and you're having the worst day, when you met some of the clients, you were just like, you're like, wow, this is a great place. And those three lessons are going to be completely evident when the campus is fully populated, and they sort of drove every decision that was made, from the location, as Charles and Eric have talked about, and the things you've noticed, the importance of being open to the community so everybody can see what this is and what is happening here, from having this sort of place, the heart, where you can see it all going on at the same time. And have it be open and inviting, but then being able to more fully engage with the clients for everybody in this community in the city of Houston, because they're amazing people. And as we went through the visioning sessions, they were really important for all of us, because they allowed us all to imagine how to get more potential out of these people and what they can contribute to the society.
Well, the community, and it's how friends are made, it's how supporters are made, it's how job opportunities happen. No, I absolutely love it. And also I want to ask you guys, I feel like, transit is like really big here, right? We have the rail here, but I also think I saw a metro path that goes through this campus. I don't know, Tiger, if you can comment on that.
Sure, yeah. So I think to reiterate what Chris mentioned, I think when we first visited the campus, we actually went and saw the process of how clients are sort of transported and how they come to the campus every day. And it was quite chaotic, actually, the day we went. So for us, safety was a big concern, but then clarity of how, the arrival sequence would work for the campus, how we, tap into bringing 40 metro shuttles in here every morning and every evening, organizing it. And then also, we looked at several different locations, and we felt, this one was one of the ones we studied that we felt it was perfect as an urban infill because of its proximity to the light rail. We were able to make it work with the metro shuttles. So I think from a planning perspective, it was fantastic. The challenge was trying to get, enough length, and what we ended up doing from a, design point of view was using, the Baker Ripley parking lot, which was another Gensler project, and sort of using that as part of the staging. And then an alleyway, which you all see behind the building, that has the CMU walls, which will hopefully in the future have some really nice murals on it. But just trying to curate the whole process. That is an idea, is like an outdoor gallery with art for the procession in, and then obviously the arrival sequence into the project. But for us, the planning was critical, and I think the easy route would have been doing just one large building. But I think from a placemaking point of view, that's, working at Gensler, I've done a lot of mixed use, and for me personally, placemaking is a critical component of creating unique and authentic places. So I think being able to pull apart the program like we did here, figure out how to do all these circulation problems that we had to address, and really seeing what it's turned out to be. It's functioned really well, and it's provided these really great outdoor spaces, which, to Chris's point, one of the things I noticed when I first visited was the clients loved being outdoors so that they could engage with each other, engage with nature. And so a huge component was being able to provide these outdoor green spaces, views to light, breezes, things like that. And then also having the ability to have private gardens for security, but then also have a public green space that connects to the city. And really, ultimately, what we were trying to do was create a walkable neighborhood that could be a precursor for development along the light rail. So I think this project does a great job of setting a great example for future projects.
Love that, and I really, not only green space, but I love the attention to transit, because in the Center for the Pursuit of Independence, the ability to have organized transit that you can understand, you can get on, you can get to your home and get to here on your own. That's such a huge win for the pursuit of independence. So I'm glad that there was a lot of focus on that. That was huge. So before we take some questions, I guess, Charles, tell me a little bit about the green space and your vision for the green space. What will it do for the community? What will it do for the clients?
Well,
The centerpiece of the campus.
right. It's not only what it will do, but what it already has done. We've had a couple of events. Some of them have been planned. Some of them have been sort of spontaneous, where we've just had large groups of people come onto the campus, which is exactly what we wanted. Directly behind me, the Norma Zenteno monument is right behind me. The Zenteno family had that special celebration here. We had a few hundred people on the property, and that's just part of what we're trying to do, is to reach the community for things like that. And ever since that's been there, which has been about a month now, we've had people come on in small groups to look at it and be around and so forth. So the green space is designed to be strategically placed in around where the retail is as well, so that when people come onto the campus for a restaurant or a coffee shop, both of which are hoped for, one's planned, one's hoped for here, they'll be able to get in onto the green space as well. There's another smaller green space all the way onto the other side of the campus, and it's in front of a rail car, which actually moved with us from the other location. It was there, and it's there, and it will be. It will have art classes in there from University of Houston. Will help us with that as well, and it's already been painted up by the local community. We actually placed it next door so that they would actually graffiti it for us, and then we moved it over here, and it's become part of the campus as well. And sort of that rail concept. We have heavy rail on one side and light rail on the other. Now we have a rail car in the middle, and it'll be a great. And in front of it is a stage, and it's there for musicians and bands and parties. And if people want to have a party out there, they can. So the idea was to be able to attract people into the community again, so that there's a feeling of openness, and they get to know the folks. For example, when we have the retailers here, one of the things we're asking for them to do is work with us to allow them to put our population to work in their retail locations. So if you have a coffee shop here, there'll be people training to be baristas and back of shop and front of shop, and then go out into the community and work, and we'll bring new folks in, so that it allows it to be a training area, as well as it allows the community to get to know the population. I just think the better we know each other, the better we're going to get along in any scenario. This is just one of them. So
I think that makes absolute perfect sense.
so that's the
Love it. No, I mean, it's great to see all you guys come together. You clearly spent a lot of time with each other, still friends, and everything's going well, so that's great. But a lot of great things y'all have done. Y'all have worked together seamlessly, and we have this beautiful project to show for it, and a beautiful mission as well. So before we take the actual tour, let's open it up for some questions. Are there any questions from the audience for our panel? Go ahead. No, go ahead, Sean.
How do you decide which retailers you take on? I mean, I understand as long as they're a part of incorporating your community, but do you have a certain focus or criteria for that?
Well, if we have to wait much longer, it's anybody that'll sign the lease. But actually, no. Actually, our strategy was, we had a couple of folks that had early on indicated some interest in this. They understand what we're trying to do, put people to work. So we're looking for someone who has the heart for that. And we originally looked for folks in the community. We've kind of expanded that into just about anybody that would want to be here. And so if they're willing to work with us, we're not asking for 100% of their staff to be folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities or autism, but we're asking them to work with us to put people to work. And so that's probably the main criteria. And we've had a really great response. However, as you can imagine, we're doing this really at the tail end of, you know, the worst pandemic that any of us have had to live through. So it's a little crazy time, but so that's kind of the number one, is someone who has the heart and understanding for what we're trying to do and work with us.
Just to add to that, I think, you know, we want it to be a pretty collaborative relationship, so that, you know, it kind of goes hand in hand with having the heart to work with the client, work with the clients, and work with the center. But then, you know, we're trying to curate something that, you know, where the folks really were going to engage the project. So we'll have a wraparound outdoor patio for the coffee shop. We would do the same for the restaurant. And then you want to bring a restaurant in that's a little bit more healthy. It doesn't have to be, you know, the healthiest food, but to try to.
It's in the wellness building.
Yes, yeah. Now, it's not like eat what you want and then work out. That's what I do. But, and so, you know, so there's some other kind of typical leasing type of concepts. But those are, as we think about the development altogether, and really you want them to activate the plaza, because that helps just bring people in, and they may come in and say, well, I want to go to the coffee shop because it's fantastic. And, oh, wait a minute, what is this place about? And they'll see a client and then start to fall in love. And then there's a real relationship, ultimately, is the vision.
That's excellent. I love it. James, you had a question?
Yeah, you guys have touched on the rail. I believe the city of Houston has TOD standards. How did that impact the layout of the site plan?
I'm going to defer that one to Tiger, because he was, you know, the funny thing is we were talking on the phone earlier in the week, and, you know, as much as we want to push, engage the street, in as much as the city wants to allow that in different formats, it really wasn't as easy as it should have been.
I was shocked. Yeah, we were talking on the phone. I was shocked to hear that. I heard a variance was requested for that.
So,
I'll let you go ahead and talk about it.
The interesting thing is, we initially, when we set out, we didn't pursue the TOD at the beginning. The transit-oriented development pursuit. We also had a garage that we were looking at adding on where the surface parking lot is. So that played in a lot to the planning at the beginning. But one of the things, particularly with this building, is we wanted to maximize. We had a sort of a square footage that we wanted to hit, but we also wanted to maximize as much of the property as we could. And the way it laid out with the planning is it actually started to encroach on the 25-foot setback that runs along Harrisburg. So we ended up going for a variance for this building. And actually, one of my favorite parts of this building is actually how close it is to the street. It really feels engaged. I mean, just sitting there in a car, it's like, wow, it's like right there. But it's
Charles
great.
was telling me about that earlier today.
Yeah.
A little bit too close.
The hope is like to pull people in, let them be, you know, really activate the street. And then as we started to run into, you know, the pandemic and you know, budgets became tight, we lost the garage. So we lost a lot of parking spaces. So I think it was a brilliant opportunity from a development standpoint to sort of pursue the TOD. So we went back into the city and looked at doing that. And some of the moves that we had made obviously contradict some of the aspects of the TOD. But I think
Well, I think the vision was aligned, but it's a lot of the technical components of how they want the buildings laid out where we had to kind of argue a little bit. And that was easy once we sat down with the planners, because they're like, this is what we want. And we love, you know, what the center's doing at the campus, but it still was pretty involved to have to go through the.
Yeah, and I think we're all in agreement and aligned. And from the very beginning, the idea was to have a really walkable. I mean, the big part is the accessibility, but having larger sidewalks, a lot, you know, hitting the landscape requirements and things like that. You know, the health and wellness building, we didn't meet necessarily with the glazing because we originally had planned for sort of a kitchen there. So there were things like that we worked through, but the city worked with us on all of them, and we were able to get to where we were. But yeah, it was a little challenging at times.
And I don't want to dwell on this, but just to be clear, the TOD, or the Transit-Oriented Development, I think ordinance, what I understood is that, I guess it's a little interesting to me. So that setback exists unless you opt into that program, or did you have to request a variance to just? So basically, my understanding was that those setbacks didn't exist against the TODs, but apparently it does.
There aren't, but on the TODs, they like your buildings to be a certain distance from the street. And for instance, the wellness was further back than where they would have liked. So there were a couple things we just had to work through, and some of that was widening the sidewalk. There's a very large sidewalk there, so there were some things that we did. The big thing was, though, reducing the amount of need for parking, which is what we're always trying to do with a lot of these developments, and also looking at the adjacent parking garage, which has a designated amount of spots for the light rail and transit. So we felt using that plus the adjacent property across the street, which the center also has, as a way to supplement that, and really it allowed us to put money back into the project, which is more important than building things for cars.
Great. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, we covered a lot. Thank you all very much. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists. All right. Let's go on a tour now.